Good morning to the press and to all our listeners and viewers following us. We are here today in a very somber mood, as you would observe. And this is a very, very serious matter that we are dealing with. I know sometimes people take everything to be political, but the two issues that is being addressed today by this team from the United Workers' Party, these are very pertinent issues. And we have deliberately decided to stick to these two subject areas for today. One of them, the cost of living, which my colleague Senator Dominic Fede was very elaborate on. But I think I need to re-emphasize. The cost of living today in St. Lucia is way beyond the average St. Lucian. It is not just the poor and indigent that is being affected by the cost of living, but our middle income people have been reduced to a level of poverty that is unprecedented in this country. And all we have heard from the government have been excuses. They have never told us what they can do to bring a measure of relief to the people. All we keep on hearing from the Prime Minister is what he cannot do. What we heard from the Minister of Commerce, who has direct responsibility and purview over the goods, especially on the supermarket shelves, is to kill it. That is what we are hearing. From the Prime Minister, matters that are raised, he says that's not your business. Now, we are in a situation in St. Lucia where we are, because, and I've said it, because a few of us can still buy bread and still buy some cheese and butter, does not mean that we should not feel for the mother, the single mother of 3 children, who does not know where bread is coming from tomorrow morning or this afternoon, so that the children can eat something to go to bed. And I do not accept that the government cannot do anything about the situation, because the Prime Minister boasted in his last budget presentation how the country had earned in excess of $70 million of tax in additional revenue. So what they had projected, they collected much more. Why? Because the cost on the world market went up. And this was a simple formula that the government could have calculated the tax on the basis of the prices pre-COVID, so that it would give some relief to the people, because we are still in a recovery mode from the impact of the coronavirus. We are still on the recovery from the impact of the number of persons who had been out of work for a period of time. The people whose electricity bills had been suspended, they had to come back and pay these bills. The people, that's except those that the government paid for. The people who the bank had given a moratorium, they still have to meet their payments. So people have been in recovery mode from the impact of the coronavirus. And what we get from this government, apart from collecting all of this additional revenue, hiking the price of fuel to unprecedented numbers in St. Lucia. Fuel had reached $17.95 and remained there for a long period of time while the price had gone down on the world market. And the government kept on exploiting the people with collecting excess revenue on fuel. And that's not the first time a Labour Party government has done that. Remember when we raised the issues with the orange match and we said they were overcharging the people by more than $3 the week after the orange match, or the fortnight after, we saw the price of fuel going down by the same numbers that the UWP in opposition had spoken about. So what we are seeing before us, again, the Prime Minister said that inflation is imported. That is a lie. There are goods that are imported and the cost has gone up. But the level of inflation in this country is not only imported, it is made in St. Lucia by the St. Lucia Labour Party government. This 2.5%, did it come from overseas? Did somebody import it into St. Lucia? The government sat, seeing that the prices have already gone up beyond the ability of the average St. Lucian who is employed. I'm not even talking about the unemployed. The average St. Lucian who is employed find it difficult. In fact, I saw somebody put out an ad that said, the most expensive vehicle to operate in St. Lucia today is the trolley at the supermarkets. That is the most expensive vehicle to operate. Because every day you walk into the supermarkets, the prices are changing. And it's not going down, it's going up. You know, so even if we complain about how high the price of fuel is, you can choose to park your vehicle and take public bus, even if they have raised the bus fares. But how do you not shop to feed your family? How do you not shop to cook and to provide free meals for your family, even though some people can only do 1 or 2, and in some instances, nothing? And we have a government who, in the midst of all of this, where you collected $70 million more than you had projected, and now you want to raise that to $110 million by imposing another 2.5%. That is supposed to generate in excess of $40 million of revenue for the government. And you are telling the people of St. Lucia that inflation is imported? Do you know what this $40 million can do for the people of St. Lucia if you leave their money in their pockets to spend as they see fit? So, Mr. Prime Minister Philip J Pierre, this United Workers' Party is calling on your government, and as a leader of this government, to remove that 2.5% burden that you have put on the people of St. Lucia. It is not necessary, it is not for security, and it is not for health, because it is not reflected in the budget. For that matter, the amount on health went down and the amount on security went up. And if you do it, the two just balance off from what was there prior to the implementation of the levy. We have heard at the meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and the personnel from the Ministry of Finance that the money is not dedicated to any particular revenue stream. It is government revenue in general. So you have misled us into believing that it is for health and for security. And maybe that is why you are making the people suffer so much in the health sector to try and justify the 2.5, because there's nothing available at the hospitals, nothing available at the health centers. The quality of healthcare is the lowest that it has ever been in the history of this country, as far as I know. And I've been around for a few years. So we are calling on you to do the right thing. Remove this 2.5% tax on the people of St. Lucia. Mr. Prime Minister, if you fail to do so, the United Workers' Party will be returned into government. And one of the first taxes that will be removed is that 2.5 tax that you have put on the people of St. Lucia. But you have the opportunity to do it. You are the one who brought it in. Remember, you all brought in VAT at 15%. And when you and Dr. Anthony were in opposition, you all called it an oppressive tax. You went ahead and you implemented under the Labour Party the oppressive tax on the people. Well, this 2.5 is more than oppressive, because it is a compounded tax that you pay VAT even on the 2.5. And so, we know that the government can do it. We know that you have the fiscal space to be able to do it. We have given you several areas where you can cut back on reckless and useless spending. These days we have Zoom. Your ministers don't have to travel around the world. How many trips have we seen them making to Dubai? What have we gotten from Dubai? All the trips. Sometimes there are hardly any ministers on the island. How many of you went to Venezuela? You mean you needed that number of ministers on a trip to Venezuela? To do what? So, there are places where you can cut, and I am asking on behalf of the people. I'm not here speaking for myself or just for the UWP. I'm speaking on behalf of the Labour Party supporters who voted you. I'm speaking on behalf of the independents who did not vote, who voted. I'm speaking, we were supposed to have 2 independent candidates, but we know they are not independent. I am speaking on the behalf of the people who voted for them, thinking that there would be independent voices on their behalf. But they have sold them out to the Labour Party. So this UWP is here speaking today and calling upon you. And I know, Prime Minister, that it can be done. If you don't do it, it is just because of the heartless and reckless manner in which the Labour Party governs. And we know that the SLP is a heartless government. But if there is any semblance of a conscience left in anybody in the Labour Party, we are calling upon you all. Next cabinet meeting, have a discussion on this and remove this 2.5 burden. Can you imagine people have not been able to pay their rents, and now they are required to pay an additional 2.5% on the rent? We have seen the price of water doubled in some instances, and people are saying, but I'm using the same amount of water. Why is my water bill going so high? We have seen electricity bills going up. We don't know what is happening. But there's one thing we know, is that the people are squeezing and the people are feeling the pressure and they are feeling the cost of goods under this Labour Party government. And I know that if UWP was in office, it's not just the 2.5 we would have removed. There would be more measures in place targeted towards the poor and the vulnerable in this country. If UWP was in office, mothers would not have had to go and buy all these thousands of dollars worth of books for their children, because they would have received a device with all the books on it under UWP government. The 2-meal program that we had started at the schools would have continued and increased by now. So parents would have had a big relief in that the only meal they might have had to think about is to give the children supper when they get home. In some of the schools, we had started to look at the areas of breakfast for the children. So when we appeal to you, it is not just an appeal to play politics. This is serious. Some men feel the burden not being able to get employment, not being able to provide for their children. And mothers, mothers have something special about them. It is rather unfortunate that the women in this Labour Party government, both at the Senate level and at the cabinet level, they behave as if they are men. They behave as if they are heartless people who don't feel anything. A reporter asking Emma, the Minister of Commerce, is there a possibility that there's price gouging? And your response to the reporter is kill it. You had secret meetings, you said, with the people, the GPH people about Soufre. How do I know you did not have secret meetings with the supermarket owners? When Chasney owned the supermarkets, the Labour Party was out there saying that it was Chasney who made the prices high. So now that Chasney do not have the supermarkets, who is making the price so high? So if you knew something back then, why don't you correct it now? What is going on? So we call on you to remove that 2.5%. And if you choose to listen, we will applaud you. If you choose not to listen, you are going to see the biggest protest that you have ever seen in the history of this country. And this is not a threat, Prime Minister. This is just information that we are giving you. Viewfort was the dry run. We are now coming with the real protest in Castries. And this is not a protest for UWP. This is a protest for every St. Lucian who is being affected by the policies of this government. I expect to see from church leaders to lawyers to economists to public servants, I expect to see every St. Lucian to come out and make a statement, because I know you can remove the 2.5%. Now let's move to the second subject. On the talk show on Thursday night, Minister Richard Frederick, who is from the office of the Prime Minister, and it must never be lost upon St. Lucians, that there is a reason why prime ministers make people ministers in their office. There is a reason for this. Prime Minister Pierre, you promised that if anyone can show you any evidence of corruption on the part of any of your ministers, you would take immediate and appropriate action by firing these persons. Well, it is not the UWP who said it. It was your minister himself who came on television and said that he had been compiling files on individuals and the police was bringing him information, was giving him information. Now, this is a serious matter. And this is not just for the Prime Minister. This is for all right-thinking St. Lucians. How do you know that your name is not among the names in those files? How do you know that your name, you are not being investigated for one reason or the other? Because it is apparent that people cannot speak and voice their concerns about this particular minister in the Prime Minister's office, or you cannot talk about the Prime Minister because he has a spokesman in his ministry who every Thursday night will attack everybody who speaks about the Prime Minister or speaks about himself. So, Prime Minister Pierre, you have a responsibility to all of us in St. Lucia to tell us whether you have sanctioned Minister Richard Frederick to do what he is doing on a Thursday night, and whether he has your endorsement to say the things that he has been saying about individuals. We saw the attack on Barbara Jacobs. Now, I know these people can handle themselves. They can. Mr. Peter King, I think you got what you deserved, because you are one of those who came and said that the cost, the 2.5% is nothing much. But what they said about you is so much. But the 2.5 is not much because you can afford to buy bread. You can afford to buy steak. Some people cannot afford to buy chicken backs. Now, that does not make Richard's attack on you right, you know. But you should be as vocal on this matter as you have been on other matters in the past. I move on. So, the Prime Minister promised us that he was not going to tolerate corruption. Isn't that what he promised us? So, and the media is there. This action, you heard from the Police Welfare Association president, that this action is corrupt. And it's in the letter that the Prime Minister or the leader of the opposition has forwarded to the police commissioner. Because if the police have done what Minister Richard said that they have done, then you have two sets of people to arrest. You have to arrest Richard Frederick, and you have to arrest the police officers who have done this. Now, when it's the little man on the street, so y'all went to Marvin's home, confiscated his computer, took his cell phone, brought him to the cell, and had him locked up on suspected bullying or whatever other things y'all said he was doing on social media. Today you have a minister in the Prime Minister's office who has come out openly and indicated that he has committed a corrupt act with the police officers by receiving information that he was not entitled to receive. He's not an investigating officer. He was not functioning as a lawyer or as a judge. And even if he was as a lawyer, he should not be receiving information from the police. So, what is the government going to do about this? And I have a couple words for the senators who are calling. Alison Jean, you posted on social media that Alan Chasney should be arrested. What has Alan Chasney done to be arrested? I want to know whether you, Alison Jean, have called for the arrest of Richard Frederick for the statements that he made on his talk show about compiling files on individuals in St. Lucia. You see, we cannot operate by double standards. And when you have people who have been given the privilege to operate as senators, you are helping to form legislation. You are passing and voting on legislation in this country, and you are going to ask for the arrest of an innocent man, while the man who has committed the crime, you are not calling for his arrest? What kind of senator are you? Are these the people we have in St. Lucia who have become lawmakers? If you don't think that if Alan Chasney had done something and the police felt it was necessary to arrest him, that they would have done it? But y'all are not satisfied, because you want St. Lucia to become a police state where the police can just do as they want and as they please. And even when the police try to uphold the law in an amicable way, to bring peace rather than strife, you as a senator, you are posting on social media that people should be arrested. There are more people in the cabinet and in the Senate and in the government that you are part of that needs to be arrested. Have you called for their arrest and their removal? And I want the people of St. Lucia to pay attention to what is happening. Because when you come into the Labour Party, you have to sing from a certain hymn book. You have to behave a certain way to remain relevant. And that is why I said the women in the Labour Party are behaving as if they are men. You would expect men to go and make these kinds of, because that is what our society is shaped like. But to get acceptance in the Labour Party, they have to do things that are unbecoming of women in order to get validation and approval. And I'm saying that should not be. The women in the United Workers' Party are highly respected. And even when they don't agree with us as men, you don't see, we never criticize them for what they do. Because at the end of the day, it is the right of a woman to be a woman and not to pretend that they are a man, because we see politics as being part of a man's world. No, we treat our women with equal rights. And there are things that women can speak about that no man can speak about. There are things that women feel that no man can feel. And all of us who are loving mothers, sisters, wives, would understand that. Women have certain intuition that men just don't have. But it's so sad to see that our women are behaving heartless in the Parliament of St. Lucia. So we need to put right where right is. So you have received the information, Prime Minister, of corruption. In fact, the old people say, si pani sutuyez, pani vole. If the police did not have somebody to bring the information to, they would not have taken the information. Where would they bring it to? They wouldn't bring it to the United Workers' Party. So why would they give information? And I move on. Usually the little people on the streets, sometimes somebody go and steal some oranges and they go and sell it to a vendor. They arrest the vendor. There was a vendor in Babono that was arrested. I know because she was receiving stolen goods, they said. So they arrest both the person who sold the goods and the person who received the goods. Why is not the same? So why did it have to call UWP to call a press conference to deal with this matter? In fact, the statement was made on Thursday night. I expected by Friday morning that the police should have been out with a statement denouncing this. Because here we are in a crime-infested country. Crime is on the rise. How can we trust our police officers? How can the citizenry trust the police officers to give them information of which vehicle they saw, which person they saw? There are burglaries happening. People have cameras at their homes. You think they will want to share the information with the police when they know that information they give can reach Richard Frederick or other persons? Now, here's the scary part of this. This is the part that Richard has told us. What about the other things that are happening that he has not told us or we don't know about? That is what should get us scared. At least we know this one. So we know that the police is compiling information and passing it on to Richard Frederick. Prime Minister, law and order in this country begins and ends with you. You can say what you want. You are the Minister of Security. You can try to pass the buck because you said it was your father who was a police officer. Today you said you're not the commissioner.
I don't know.
You don't know. So why are you the minister and you don't know? Now I have a simple statement to make on this. I believe that our Prime Minister has been a follower for so long that he does not recognize that he is the Prime Minister and he is the leader. Because every leader in this country would know. How can you be the Prime Minister and you not know what is in the impacts report? Every Monday morning, I hope it continues, the police would be reporting to the office of the Prime Minister to update the Prime Minister of events that transpired during the last week. Now, that is the Prime Minister when the Prime Minister was not the Minister of Security. So I could imagine today with the Prime Minister being the Minister for Security, that he would get daily updates from the police as to what is happening. And you want to come on television and you want to tell the whole nation, it's not Dale Elliott you responded to. You responded to St. Lucia by telling St. Lucia, I don't know anything about this. Prime Minister, you really expect us in St. Lucia to believe that you don't know anything? When the Labour Party said so much about the impacts report in opposition and in Operation Restore Confidence, when impacts was commissioned by a Labour Party government. So are you telling the people of St. Lucia that Kenny Anthony had so little regard for you as the deputy leader of the party? You wanted to go to your home and take a letter, stop Parliament, to tell us you are Deputy Prime Minister. When we questioned the position of Deputy Prime Minister, you requested of the Parliament, stop, and you go in home and take your letter that you are appointed Deputy Prime Minister. And you're telling the nation today you have graduated to be Prime Minister and you don't know anything about impacts. You did not even listen to the reporter's question. Well, if you didn't listen, we are calling on you to listen now and to hear what we are saying. So, I want to ask a further question. Will these files lead to a hit list? Why are the files? And I don't want to say my own words, you know. This is a report. U.S. suspends police assistance for St. Lucia over alleged killings. August 22nd, 2013. Just one line. Anthony, during his speech, that's Dr. Anthony, during his speech on Tuesday, confirmed seeing such a list while he was in opposition. Maybe I should read the paragraph before. The alleged extrajudicial killings stem from the circulation of a hit list targeting persons deemed to be criminals. 5 suspects whose names were on the list were shot and killed during the police operations. And the report goes on to say, Anthony, during his speech on Tuesday, confirmed seeing such a list while he was in the opposition. So if Dr. Anthony confirmed that he saw a list, how did that list come about? Because I know I was in government. I know my colleague Montut was in government. I know my colleague Alan was in government. None of us saw a list. So it means that that list was compiled outside of the remit of cabinet, and the 2 persons mentioned in the impacts report are now both members of the cabinet of the St. Lucia Labour Party. So St. Lucians, you can think that politicians are targets. But here's something for the businessmen. And you heard it from the political leader. Dr. Kenny Anthony, when he came to address the nation, said that there were politicians, there were businessmen, and there were policemen involved.
Colluded or corrupt?
They colluded together in the corruption that was happening. St. Lucia, this is a serious situation. There is a minister in the Prime Minister's office. And Philip J Pierre, you can say your ministers have not been fingered. That is not fingers alone, you know. These are hands.
Fingering himself.
This is more than a finger. This is a whole hand that we are talking about there. And the evidence is there. You commissioned the study. You commissioned the investigation, St. Lucia Labour Party, under Kenny Anthony. The Leahy law was imposed on St. Lucia because the U.S. believed that there was a hit list. Maybe, Dr. Anthony, you made it available to them. I don't know. Because if you saw it, or did you testify to them? Today, what has changed about Richard Frederick? He's changed from being a member of the United Workers' Party to being a member of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And I'm appealing to all Labour Party supporters in St. Lucia. You criticize us. You condemned us for having a man like this in a UWP government. Now I want to make a statement. Alan Chasney will always be under attack from Richard Frederick on his show every Thursday. You know why? This is the only leader in St. Lucia who has stood up to Richard Frederick. Not even the great Sir John. When Richard won the by-election and they wanted to bring him into the party, Sir John said, I didn't choose him. Y'all chose him. Y'all want him. I'm giving him to y'all. These were his words in the boulevard. Stevenson King, after the UWP had made a decision that Richard Frederick would not run the elections, should not even have come to the rally in Dennery
2011.
in 2011. He came, and Spider paid a heavy price because he was the MC at the meeting. And the next thing we knew, Richard was involved in running the elections. Stevenson King could not stand up to him. Today we have both Kenny Anthony and Philip J Pierre. Kenny Anthony, you said all what you said. You all sit on the same side of the parliament today. And even if you don't go to cabinet, you are as guilty as everybody else in the process. All the things you said, Alan just read, our political leader just read some of it in your statements about Richard. But I suspect the you know what I know and you know is what have you all together, because you all know about each other. Philip J Pierre, you have not been able to stand up to Richard Frederick. The only man in this country, the only leader who stood up to Richard was Alan Shasney when Richard was fired from the United Workers' Party under the leadership of Alan Shasney. And we must not forget, there were operatives of Stevenson King who took the party to court in the person of Mark Louis. I don't give you stories, you know. I give you the facts to back up what I'm saying. And so we have seen, and we know that there are many Labour Party supporters who do not support what is happening there, but they are powerless. They are voiceless today. They cannot speak because it's their party doing the dirty work today on the people of St. Lucia. And Prime Minister, this goes beyond the shores of St. Lucia. We cannot have a minister in the Prime Minister's office who has police officers colluding with him to bring files out on individual citizens of this country. I don't know what his connection was with the hit list. The report has enough information, but I think every right St. Lucian need to be thinking, will my name appear on these files? And will I be part of a hit list? And a hit list does not necessarily mean people that they want to execute, you know. A hit list could mean a lot of things. Will I be a target? Will Spider be a target? Will the average citizen out there who has a voice or who was at the demonstration, would they be targets? We are calling on you, Prime Minister. Do the right thing, not for yourself, not for the Labour Party, but for the country. You cannot have a minister in your office who is engaged in such activity, who has broken the law, who has been involved in corrupt practices with police officers, and would come on national television and state that to the people of St. Lucia, and no action will be taken. So there are two things we require of you, Prime Minister. Deal with the Richard situation in your office. We are calling on you to remove Richard from his position until the investigation is completed and he is cleared. And then remove the 2.5% burden that you have put on the people of St. Lucia. This, we have given you adequate notice and warning about this, because this is not just a UWP matter. This is a St. Lucia matter, and we will take the appropriate steps as the opposition to lead the march and call St. Lucians to demand what is right and just for all of us in St. Lucia. I thank you.